Okay guys, I'm live again. It should be. Let me just double check. Sorry about that. My internet kind of went crazy for a second. Let's see if it goes through. All right, there we go. All right. Hopefully, Sarah, you can see that I restarted the chat. I did put something in Slack for you guys. So, yeah, I was just having issues downloading all of those participation grades. Our videos kind of short-circuited my internet, and so I had to stop the live stream and start it back up. So quickly, because I'm going to delete the other one after class, but quickly what we're going to go through today is I'm going to start off with the participation questions. We're going to answer those, and then we are going to go over the real and surreal projects again. I'm going to kind of finish off and show you guys where the rest of what we need to do with the realistic room, and then with the surrealistic scene as well. So, and then after that, if I have time, I will go over your guys' typography projects, but at the moment, let's just try and get through these because there's a lot of these videos. So I will start with Eric. Also, like I said before, I'm going to be upgrading some of my stuff, but in the meantime, I'm going to have to just mute my mic when I play these and unmute it when I'm done. So,
week, my question is about Cinema 4D. I was having trouble with the rendering because when I do the viewport render, it shows the shadows from the target light. But when I do the window render, the shadows are not there. So, and I looked it up, but I couldn't find much information on it.
good question, Eric. So what that is, it's actually a render setting inside of Cinema 4D. So let me go ahead and open it, and we're going to go into the render settings here. Actually, it's in the save. Let me find it real quick for you. Hi, Sarah. Sorry about that. No, not in that one. Okay, so it's under render settings. Is it under save? We want it with alpha channel always. Shadows. So under, hold on, let me get this working here. All right. Up at the top, right here, under render settings, you're going to go over to options, and then in the options, there's a checkbox that's for shadows, reflections, refractions, and transparency. And you want to make sure that those are all on. And then I believe if you're doing the viewport renderer, not physical, viewport, you will go into, so if you're using the viewport render, you go make sure that you change your render up here. Click the viewport render settings there, and then you're going to tick these boxes right here, the shadows, reflections, make sure that's on, and transparency. And then what you also want to do if you're going to do that is hit go here and hit geometry only, because we don't want to see all of like our lines and guides and grids and all that kind of stuff with it. So just make sure that you're doing this if you're working in the viewport renderer only. You do not have to do that if you're working from the standard, if you're like rendering from the standard renderer. So that's to answer your question, Eric. All right, now I am going to... Oh, hey, Eric, you're in the chat. Let me know if they answered that for you, and if you have any more questions about that. But I am going to move on to Asia's question right now.
Hi, so my question for this week has to do with Adobe After Effects, and I was wondering if anyone else had this issue. When I pressed the graph editor to start easing the text for the text portion that we had to submit, my like red line was there as it was in the lecture, but there was also another line that I had to start like adjusting in order for the red line to adjust and for the easing to actually happen. I couldn't actually physically edit the red line as the professor did in the lecture. I was able to do it fine. I was just wondering if anyone else had this issue as well. Thank you.
Yeah, good question, Asia. So, in order for me to really understand what specifically you're talking about, I generally get a gist of what kind of question you're asking, but I need to see the program so that you can kind of walk me through. So next time you do the question, just although I love seeing your guys' faces and it makes me feel like I'm not alone all the time. If you could just have the program in the background, or if you could like cut to that part of, your explanation or switch on and off. But I believe what's happening is because you have both of if the line is green, then that means you have the Y parameter also keyframed. And so if the dimensions aren't separated, you will have to ease both of the lines unless you're working in the speed. It depends on which graph you're working in, right? If you're working in the value graph or the speed graph. But usually it's because you have another dimension like locked in and keyframed with it. And so next time when you're working, especially when it comes to just position, I don't think you can't separate. You maybe scale, you can separate parameters. I haven't tried to do that. But just make sure you're separating the dimensions, like right clicking and hitting separate dimensions first. If not, it's okay. It is best practice to separate them. I am not the best at that, like at continuously doing that, and you'll kind of see that throughout the semester. But if you're working in one dimension, right, either the X or the Y, then you should be separating the parameters out, the dimensions. So let me know if that helped, and if it doesn't, we'll try and troubleshoot that next time. Yeah, with Eric, yeah, to figure out the... Are you talking about the same thing that Asia was having a question with, or?
I have to do a little catching up because I've been having.
Let me mute my mic real quick.
I have to do a little catching up because I've been having problems with my C drive. But I was wondering if we were going to be doing a lot of camera work in Cinema 4D later on in the semester.
Yeah, we're going to work with cameras today. Not super complex camera work right now because you guys will probably find out that moving in 3 dimensions gets messy very quickly. And so we're just kind of, we're working with more simple things right now because this is just the introduction to animation. But if you end up going further into the 3D classes and working with Cinema 4D more, you will learn a lot more about cameras and animating the cameras and whatnot. You will animate a little bit of the cameras. We're going to animate also like the objects inside of Cinema 4D. So that's kind of where we're going. And I read your thing about your C drive. And so hopefully we can get that fixed up, because I don't want you to get too far behind. So, and then Eric mentioned in the chat that he also had the issue with the separate, it took him a while to figure that out with the graph, and to separate the dimensions. So, we're going to move on to Brian's question. I'm going to mute my mic.
Hey, what's up? I just had 3 quick questions this week. The first one I actually answered myself, but I wanted you to be aware of it in case this problem comes up again in the future. When I tried to export the file to the After Effects file to Media Encoder, it wouldn't work. I just sat there waiting for something to happen for like 10 minutes, and nothing happened. And then I checked Task Manager because applications started crashing, like my internet got messed up. And After Effects was using like 12,000 megabytes of memory for some reason. So while it's trying to render something, it was using a lot of resources, and the problem was that the GPU drivers weren't updated. They're like 5 days out of date, so you really need like the most up-to-date thing. So if a problem ever happens where you can't, Media Encoder's not working, it's probably because something's out of date. So my second question was with the typography assignment itself. I wasn't sure because there's the After Effects thing, the good, better, best, and all that, and then there's the Cinema 4D, the 3D typography, and I wasn't sure if you wanted us to put all that in the same file, or if you wanted 2 files separate, because these tutorials, it looked like they were 2 separate things, but so I submitted them as 2 separate files, but I can resubmit it as one if you prefer that. And then the third question was the real and surreal. I just wanted to know if this is the only thing next week, because I'll be heading out of town soon. I just wanted to make sure I'd be able to get everything done ahead of time. So I just wanted to know if this was...
Yeah, so I'm going to address those one at a time. The first thing that you were running into with your... Hold on, let me turn my mic down real quick. I don't want to blow your guys' eardrums out. The first thing that you were running into with your GPU is like a weird thing. First of all, you want to go into composition and then go down to render in Media Encoder. It's not through file export. So I just want you to be aware of that. I'm sure you already know. It was just like a quick clicking through and just accidentally went to the wrong tab. But it is through composition at the top, and then you go down to render through Media Encoder. That is really weird. But yeah, there has been some issues with Adobe products recently and NVIDIA GPU cards where they have been giving warnings in the beginning when you open up the program. It's something with the new update that they did, so it was just like a bug. They'll probably work it out. Usually don't have to have the most up-to-date GPU, but you do have to update your graphics card, I mean, it's the same as if you're playing video games and stuff, right? You want to keep that kind of stuff up to date. And so there's that. The second thing that you asked was about the deliverable for the typography module. I am asking for one video with all of them in it. Yeah, so there's, you want to put let me pull up the module real quick. We'll go to this one. Sarah, yeah, there was the Cinema 4D one. I didn't get a chance to cover it in class. And so I wanted you guys to watch this video specifically. Where is it? Let me see on here. Am I in the wrong one? No. Okay. For some reason, it's not showing me the preview, but this one right here, this video will talk to you about doing your name, creating your name in 3D. That's okay. You know, if you didn't turn it in right now, like I said, just get your work in. Throughout the semester, I'm going to give you guys feedback on your work and give you guys revisions to do. And so if you put that in, you still submit the project with a majority of the parameters of the deliverables done. I will give you a grade, or I will ask you for more work in order for me to put that grade in. You'll just have to make sure you're keeping that up to date inside of like your grade, the modules, when I leave you a message on it. And so if you need to re-upload that, if you want to do that again, Sarah, and re-upload it, that's fine. We'll see if I can get to that later today, and if not, I'll talk about it on Monday. I'll go over everyone's projects I'm sorry, not Monday, but Tuesday. And so, yeah, but Eric, back to this. It should all be in one video, right? It will specifically say if I want you guys to upload things in different ways. The reason I ask for you guys to upload them all in one video is A, I don't get a ton of video files to have to sort through and sift through, and B, because it shows me that you guys can composite all of these projects into one video. So yeah, you can just redo that. I don't know if I said Eric, but if I did, I'm sorry, because it's Brian. But yeah, Brian, to answer that question, go ahead and just re-upload that. And then your third question about if we're just going to be talking about surrealism and realism this week, yes. I'm gonna go over this kind of second part of it in class, and it's gonna be kind of heavier on your system as far as rendering, and it'll take you guys a little more time. Mostly the setup's what is going to take up the time, and then the rendering, because there's not going to be as much animation in this one. It's just kind of getting used to using the asset browser inside of Cinema 4D, doing a little bit of camera animation, and like very, very minimal camera animation, like pushing in, you know, just scanning the room, nothing massive. So you know, do your best on that, Brian. If you get it in right away, you do, you know, but if you need, you know, to get in what you have done and then give me the rest later, that's fine. I will let you guys, I'll remind you that for this specific project, I believe it's the only one that we're doing this, down at the bottom, the deliverables, sorry, it's not at the bottom, it's in the middle. The deliverables are as follows. Right here, I made sure to highlight this section for you guys. But upload your animated scenes as small MP4s to Slack, so you'll have 2 of those, or 1. Either way for that is okay. And then upload the MP4 and the C4D projects. The entire folder with all the assets. That's the biggest thing, right? Is I'm going to show you guys today how to basically save with the assets, so that you can turn in a folder where I have all of those assets with it. I want to be able to see specifically that you guys are able to save it with collecting all of that stuff together. So that is what the deliverables will be for this current project that we're working on. All right, now I'm going to go to Manny, and I'm going to mute my mic.
Hey everyone. So I just wanted to say that after watching this LinkedIn Learning course and the other videos on typography in motion, I just want to say that it really opened up my eyes. Like, I didn't even know that typography even counted as an animation. So that made me wonder, what other kinds of projects like these could we be working on in this course besides the 2D and 3D animation?
Yeah, Manny, we're going to work on all sorts of projects, but they're all going to be 2D and 3D animation. The biggest thing that, you mentioned is typography, not realizing how much it's used. It is used everywhere. You see it in commercials, you see it online, web banners. Typography and animating typography happens all the time. I literally do it all day, sometimes for like 8 hours a day, and it can get a little monotonous with having to do that often, but you get better at it, and you get to know kind of the rules and how you can break the rules and stuff. And sometimes you'll get a lot quicker at it, first of all, and then sometimes you will have clients who allow you to do a little bit more creative things with type. But a lot of the times, especially in the marketing field, what you see is a lot of companies need to, dole out a lot of information in a short video. And so what they like to do is put a lot of text on screen. It is not advisable. If you're watching a video, most likely what we like to do is see it translated with imagery, and so the less text you can have on screen, the better. But there's I work with clients who are medical, work in the oncology field, or clients that deal with ear, nose. I work with a lot of medical clients, and a lot of these companies have medical disclaimers at the end, and those are very dense, and there's a lot of information on it, and so you have to put it on screen. And so, you'll have a lot of that kind of type and explain. I have a lot of clients wanting to explain how testing works and stuff. And so sometimes you can't necessarily visualize it with anything other than like infographics and text. So yes, you do see a lot of it. Moving on to Zoe.
Hello. My question for this week is going to be about transparent backgrounds in Adobe After Effects. So I can see that I can toggle on and off the transparency, but during when I'm exporting the file, it always has a background. So I'm not sure if there's something in exporting that I have to do for it to have a transparent background.
I realized I didn't mute my mic. I muted the display. Are you guys able to hear what she was saying? Let me know. I'm going to replay it.
Hello. My question for this week is going to be about transparent backgrounds in Adobe After Effects. So I can see that I can toggle on and off the transparency, but during when I'm exporting the file, it always has a background. So I'm not sure if there's something in exporting that I have to do for it to have a transparent background. But yeah, that's my question.
So yeah, Zoe, if you want to have a transparent background, you just have to make sure that you have to export the video differently. It has to be an MOV file. And unfortunately, you can't render out MOV files inside of Media Encoder. There's a different way to do it. You have to go through the render, just like the renderer inside of After Effects. The renderer inside of After Effects kind of sucks, but that's like the only thing that if you're trying to render out a video that has transparency in it. For instance, you want to layer it onto other videos or other content, right? Like, for for instance, if I were to play an overlay on the screen right now, I would want it to be transparent because I would want just that to show over top of my screen, right? So I'd want no background on there. And in order to do that, you have to go, what you do is go up here, up to composition. And then when you drop that menu down, it'll say render with media coder. And then the other one will say to render, like use the other renderer. And you want to go through that. I can show you guys a little bit later on how to do that. But for now, you guys want a background. Now, if you're rendering this out and it's coming out with a black background, it's because there is this, when you toggle this button on and off, it doesn't mean it's adding a background in there when you see the white, right? If you see the checkered background, it's showing you, okay, it's transparent. But if you toggle that back off and it shows the white background, it is just there for visual purposes for you to see. It doesn't mean that there's anything in there. And so what you want to do at that point is create a solid layer and then make that one your background. So thanks, Eric, for letting me know. I hope you were able to hear it the second time. But I am going to play Lee's now, and this time actually mute my mic. So
Hi, Miss Makara. So I have one real quick question regarding this upcoming project, the Real and the Surreal. So looking at this video right here, I can see that both the real scene and the surreal scene are compiled into one video. Is that required, or are we able to send them as two different videos?
yeah, you can send these ones. You can specifically send as two separate videos if you want, or one video. Like, you know, I'll give you snaps or like, you know, high fives and stuff if you do it in one video for me. But if you guys end up rendering it out in two separate videos, that is okay. The one thing I want to make sure though is that you post the two or the one to Slack, right? And then I also want you then to upload those MP4s or that single MP4 into Canvas along with your project file, the Cinema 4D project file that has the assets collected. So if you have any more questions about that, Lee, just ask. But moving on to Sarah in the chat.
Hello. Sorry, I'm not the most comfortable with being on camera, but my question today is more about the industry in general rather than the work that we're working on right now. I wanted to know, when it comes to the animation industry, and obviously I'm working on my degree towards that right now, what is the best way to network and find good companies to work for, or find connections for this kind of thing, because I want to be able to go to a good animation studio at some point. That's my goal, at least. And also a good art university as well. GCC is great, but I want to go to an actual art university at some point. So I know that you work in the industry, the mo graphics industry. So I wanted to know, how did you make your connections? How did you find work and all of that good stuff?
That's a good question, Sarah. And honestly, I could talk forever on that. The tips that I would give you guys as far as networking is working with other students is really important. And building relationships with other students, because they're going to go off. Some of them will and some of them won't. That's the reality of it. But they'll go off to get jobs at studios, right? But so keeping them in contact and keeping in contact with those people is great, because later on down the road, you could use them for references or ask them if there's jobs available at wherever they work. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. Another way that I would recommend, first of all, I would recommend creating the work for the job that you want, right? You don't want to, you're going to learn to make a lot of different things here at GCC in the program. And not all of it is going to be something that you want to go into and love. Let's say you want to focus more on the 3D work, then I would make sure you do side projects that contain a lot of 3D work and, you know, focus, kind of hyper focus in on that particular area. And then what you do is you kind of tailor your portfolio to the jobs that you are going to be looking for, right? So if you already know you're into 3D animation, then you want to specifically go out and look for those jobs on LinkedIn. There's jobs on Indeed. There's all sorts of jobs, you know, just pretty much putting yourself out there with all of the employee sites. That's like a really good one. Eric asked if we're going to be collaborating on projects. We do not have any collaboration projects at the moment, but that's something that I've spoke with the director about possibly implementing. The problem is that we have a lot of students who unfortunately don't like to get their work done at the same time. And so the collaboration part can be a little bit harder, especially when you're online versus like in class, right? But if you guys want to go ahead and, you know, over the summertime, like getting to know each other, talking to each other, like in the Slack chat and or meeting up at school. I used to do that. In fact, I'm still friends with a couple people that I went to school at GCC with in the program. And they're often working in the field as well, because you can kind of tell who's really wanting to stay in that area and who doesn't. And you will see them progress throughout your school career in the classes. Now, another way to really network is, it's very uncomfortable, but learning to just kind of cold contact people. And it sucks, but if you are wanting to work for yourself or do side projects like freelancing at some point, you have to, you know, reach out to people that you feel your talents and your skill set would benefit. And then you have to just, you know, you have to do it a lot. And, you know, I used to freelance before I started working full time. When I first got out of school, I went into freelancing, and it's a hard thing to really get a lot of clients, but you just, you know, you start looking for people, you end up knowing people, talking to people, and then you kind of get jobs through other motion designers and animators that you know. I will say that we do have at the end of this, at the end of your time here at GCC, there's an internship class that I'm also teaching, where, you know, you spend the semester before trying to get an internship. We have a bunch of local businesses and organizations who need interns. We try and find paid internships for you guys, because I mean, I do not agree with non-paid internships. You know, no one should really work for free. That is another thing. Don't work for free. You know, with internships that might vary, but those internships open doors for people. So I really suggest that at the end of your time here, you definitely take that class, because that's going to put you guys into the real working field, and you're going to kind of cut your teeth in there, meet more people, and then kind of learn the ins and outs of daily work with this. So, yeah, good question. All right, Kaylee.
Hi, I didn't really have any questions regarding the programs this week. However, one question about the industry that came to mind when I was working on the typography project. Some of the videos were stating how studios can overlook you if you have really good artwork, but your typograph isn't the best and isn't well aligned. I was just wondering why exactly that is. Okay, thank you.
It's kind of like they want to be able to see, companies and employers want to be able to see that you can line up type to a grid, that your type isn't kind of all over the place, that you have an eye for design, right? Because you can tell right away with someone's work if they have an eye for design and if their design works or it doesn't work, because the lines are, or the rules with typography are so strict that if you veer from it even slightly, people can tell, especially people with design backgrounds. And those are the people that are looking at your reels and your portfolios. Like I said, I don't know if I mentioned this in the other class, but in my position, I look at freelancers' work, and within 2 seconds of opening the video, I can tell if their work is worth it or not worth it. And the reason being is because every single video we do has typography in it. So if they can't execute that, then we're going to have, then usually it compounds, that issue is compounded by other stuff, right? And so you just want to be able to show the fundamentals, that you have a strong base, right? Because you don't build a house, you don't just put the walls up to a house, right? And put the roof on and say we're all set. There's a foundation that has to be poured, and then, you know, there's a lot of different layers to that. And so that's kind of what we're doing here, and why we stress that typography is so important, and to really kind of stick within the box when it comes to typography right now. And once you get better at that, taking more design classes and getting more guidance with it, then is when you can start to break the rules a little bit or veer from them, is when you're making intentional design choices, and the viewer can tell that right away. You know, when you look at an example of that, a great example right now is brutalism. I don't know if you guys have seen that style, or neo-brutalism. Let me see. Neo-brutalism design. But this they use a lot of really weird things with text, especially right here, how they're mixing different weights and, you know, italics and different fonts. But it's so intentional, you can tell. That's not something that was accidentally done. Another one, let me see here. Vertical type. We don't ever say to put vertical type in, but with these lines, right, it leads your eye to be able to read that clearly. Because vertical type is hard to read, especially if your letters, like if these letters were rotated 90 degrees and reflex was like in the proper orientation, that would look horrible. But because they actually rotated the actual word to be vertical, but reading like from down to up, it just works that way. Let me see if there's another. I'm not a huge fan of how tight this is against here, but it slightly runs off. Let me see if I can see another one. I don't know if I like that example. Let me see here. I don't know, but there's like if you go on Pinterest and you look up certain designs, right? Like this, right? We tell you not to stretch type. We tell you not to squash type. Yet here it is obviously stretched, but it's stretched across the design intentionally, right? And so we can read that says creed. It almost looks, because of the crease down the middle here, and because of the change in value from here on the E to here, right? It shows that there's shadows. It gives it a dimension, like a 3-dimensional look instead of a flat look. And so it looks like it's just been folded intentionally that way. Yeah. It's a great question, because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to stick to the rules. I want to have fun and you know, use different typefaces and stuff. And it's just stick to the rules at the moment, and you'll be golden, you know. So let's go to Selena. I'm sorry, Lee.
So I had a bit of trouble with the ball animation. So it would for some reason, I think it was the 3D ball that I used in 4D, it would just it would stop. It wouldn't be like a continuous loop for some reason. I think you saw it when you graded it, but I couldn't get it to work. It was just really frustrating me. But everything else I did in that system was fine. It worked really well. I had a lot of fun doing it actually, especially the 2D, which is why I want to be an animator. But then I changed my mind because I feel like it's slowly going to more 3D wise. But yeah, I turned it in a little late, which I apologize for. That was my fault and my time management. But I did have fun animating the first two balls, just like the 4D one is something that I always had trouble with, and I really liked seeing the LinkedIn video of people's like doing everyday work. That was really fun to see.
Yeah. First of all, Lee, the like I said, as long as you're turning it in, that's fine. I'll leave notes on it. And also, if you still need help on that, I would recommend utilizing Belle. I know someone else in the class has utilized her tutoring a couple times now, and she says she's awesome, because if you know, everyone, I explain this to the other student, that everyone has a different teaching style, like everyone has a different learning style. And so if for some reason the way I'm teaching isn't working, it's good to go look and get help with someone else. Also, asking questions in Slack will help, because others might have run into the same issue. And then also, when you're going to do these videos, just like I mentioned before, make sure that the program is on screen so I can see kind of what's going on, and that gives me more insight into kind of how your layers are set up. And you can click into compositions and kind of show me what you've been doing, where you can't figure out it's going wrong, and so you can pinpoint it more for me, and that helps me out. But other than that, yeah, it feels very heavy in 3D work right now, which it is a little bit heavier on that at the moment, but we will definitely be getting more into 2D animation here shortly. Even in my job, I only do 2D animation, so Cinema 4D I sometimes will have more questions in than with After Effects. And so, you know, some questions you guys might have in there, it might take me a second to try and figure it out, but I will with you guys. But I understand that working in 3 dimensions is difficult, and it's more tedious because all of a sudden you're adding a third dimension into there, and there's a lot that you can kind of mess up. But not only that, you have to consider lighting, and then there's textures, and then there's physics, like actual physics involved in some of the things that you can put on there, versus really in After Effects, in order to get those, you have to emulate those things. The program doesn't inherently do that. It's not a native thing to After Effects, right? You kind of have to make it yourself. And so, which kind of gives you a workaround way. A lot of people become really creative in trying to find different ways of emulating those specific things inside of After Effects, where you natively get it inside of a 3D program. For example, like physics, right? There's a lot of physics baked into Cinema 4D, but in After Effects, there's no physics. There's one particle emitter that you can put in After Effects, but really the physics is not there. And so you can buy a plugin. There's things called scripts and plugins, which are essentially like extensions of your program that can do those things for you. The problem is, right, is if you work in that and then hand that project off to someone who doesn't own it or doesn't have that plugin, then it breaks the project. And so, you know, especially with my work, we make sure not to use plugins, because not everyone might have them, right? I use certain plugins for personal work, but in general, yeah, it's the 3D programs are very heavy and a lot to learn. But we'll be getting more into 2D stuff in a little bit, and then it'll be kind of like a mix, like a good mix. So, moving forward, let's go to Nolan.
So my question for this week is, so there are the stopwatches that you can click to set in place the coordinates or the position, but there's a stopwatch right here that I've been curious of what it does, because I've pressed it originally I thought that was what you were talking about, and I just had a different layout, but I press it and it doesn't do anything, and I double click it or whatever, and it just doesn't do anything. So I'm curious if this has a function.
I actually don't know. I don't think I've ever really noticed that inside of After Effects. Nolan, let me open a project actually here and check that. It makes me giggle because I'm like, what is that? um it might just be something that's like, so your timeline, especially at the bottom, in order to conserve space, the program doesn't natively show you all of the buttons at the top or all of like the options, right? Because you can toggle these, enable motion blur. This one enables frame blending, which we don't really use. I never use actually. So this one allows you to hide layers, which is like shying them differently. So if I were to click that and I have a massive stack of layers inside of my timeline, if I click this little, if I turn that on right there and click this little guy, it'll just hide the layer from me. It doesn't mean that it's not active, right? So like the 3D ball, if I hide this layer, it hides my 3D and my 3D ball and my After Effects ball, right? But as soon as I click this, I have my shy button activated. I click this, it just hides that layer out of view. And then if I just click this again and shut that off, it brings it back. And I can undo that. And, you know, that's just a kind of a way to tidy things up. Now, certain things aren't showing up here, including that little stopwatch, which could also be like a new thing. In fact, this little slug here, I have no idea what that is either, but I'm going to assume this little guy has to do with something with time. That might be a new parameter that they have. What is changing? All right, my timeline is extending. It's adding something. Oh, it's telling you how long. Okay, so with that one down at the bottom, when you're rendering, there's a new way that After Effects like renders your previews. And so it'll tell you how long it's taking to render that live preview playback. And I think that's what that little guy is for down there. But if you right click up here, let me see, is it that? Or it is down here. Expanding that. We don't want those. I don't use those duration codes. Why can't I? There we go. So not up here, but down here. If you right click, you can see columns, maybe keys. No, that's not it. I'm not sure. Maybe that's a preference up here. Let me look into that for you. And once I get an answer, I'll kind of post that in Slack for you guys. But that's a good question because I have no idea. All right, so let us go to Maisie.
Hello. I had a question about lectures and due dates, specifically these assignments, because they were due on Monday, but then we went through most of it again with you on this lecture on Tuesday, and I was just feeling a little confused on whether or not I was supposed to turn in the assignment already and do the assignment, or if I was supposed to work through it with you on Tuesday in the lecture and do it this week. But I know the due date says Monday, so that's why I turned it in Monday. But also I would prefer to work through it live with you in class, and that way it's easier if we have questions. We can message in the chat.
Maisie, are you watching today? Let me check here real quick. I think it's just, no, I don't think. you're not in there right now, but like, yeah, that I went over that because I had to split the lecture up. So I put the due date there, because there's always like, there's always extra videos in here if you guys kind of want to work ahead where, let me go back to the one module. With the typography, right, there were extra things I didn't quite get to. Like the first night, you know, especially because I end up having to answer these questions. And this is kind of a large class for this particular one. Like I think normally there's less than 15 students in the class. And so it's just been getting more and more popular. And so the more questions I have to usually answer, the longer it takes. But you guys deserve that time. And so sometimes I have to split up classes. Like last class on Tuesday, I didn't quite get through all of the surreal and real. And so I'm going to do the rest of that today. And then if not, I'll extend the project deadline. But like I was saying earlier, like as long as you get things in at a certain point, that's great. I won't dock you for being a little late or having like issues with that. That's okay. But if you guys want to move ahead, sometimes you can watch some of these videos. And if not, watching live is a great idea because then you can ask video or questions directly here. So let me go on to Amaya.
For this week's progress report, I was surprised with how well I was able to handle this week's assignment with animating the text, especially since it was new for me. And when I learn completely new things, I get stressed out if I don't get it right, which is something I need to work on as a person and a creator who is learning new skills such as these. I was able to produce the video, but I have trouble with media encoder sometimes, especially for downloading the videos, and they don't play sometimes. So that makes me stressed out, and the product that I turn in doesn't turn out how I want it to be. So that was the thing that went wrong this week. And something that went good was being able to animate text, which I thought was pretty cool to know how to do now. And my question for today is, what other things we will be animating? Will it just be words for a while, or will we combine, like, for example, the ball animation and word animation together? I hope that question.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there, Amaya. Yeah, we're going to be doing all sorts of fun stuff. So, like, you guys, I'll show you my website. I'm working on it still. I'm like updating some stuff. But you guys will be able to do all sorts of, like one of the things I ended up doing in class, like these are older projects, from years ago that I worked on, you know, at GCC and stuff. But like, you know, here's like an example of working with typography with motion graphics behind, right? So like essentially what I just did is composited different videos and different effects on top of each other, if it ever is going to play. But, you know, these are just time lapses of flowers that I used effects on and added typography on it. The typography, now that I'm a seasoned animator, there's things I would have changed, but I still have it on there because it looks cool, right? So, and you'll learn to, essentially, we're going to just be working on things where you can make your own infographics. Not all of these projects. A lot of these are projects that are personal projects of mine, but we're going to be doing a lot of fun stuff. And in the point, so the way the class works is it stacks skills on top of each other, right? So right now we're learning kind of about like camera movement and working inside of Cinema 4D, and then we did the text kind of stuff and bouncing balls, right? Because I'm teaching you the essentially what you're learning is the principles of animation. And then next week we're going to do a little more. And then what we do at the end of the semester is we have a portfolio. So we take all of these videos and we combine them together. And then like that contact information that you did for the typography one, that's going to be at the end of your portfolio so that you guys can be contacted by people when they want to watch it, when they watch your reel, if they like your work. And it's the stress thing is universal when it comes into this career, and you will consistently have issues where you're stressed out, and there's going to be things you're not going to understand how to do, and things are going to break, and you're going to be very frustrated with yourself, and you have this grandiose idea in your head of what things should look like, but then they don't. And those skills will come over time, right? You're not, it's unfortunately, we can't just download the information into our brain and just be good at it. It takes work, it takes practice, it takes learning design and skills like that. And then, working on that over the years. But the harder you work into it, the more work you put into it, the better you will get. And that stress will kind of subside and you'll understand things a little bit better. But there's still always going to be stressful times. You just have to give yourself grace, right? And you have to, like I said, walk away sometimes from the project. And if you don't turn something in right away on time, I'm not going to be upset. I like to see things turned in on time because in the real world, deadlines are going to be important. But right now, you guys are learning. And so that's what's important to me, is seeing that you guys can take the feedback and apply the changes, and that you kind of understand the principles of what are going on. So next question, Janelle.
Hello, my question for this week is, how do I get rid of these darker spots in my 3D type? Thank you.
Good quick question, Janelle. So that has to do with the fall off of your light inside of Cinema 4D. So let me bring up, in fact, let me open the realism project that we're going to be working on today, because I just want to have it kind of ready to go. So they're on the outside of the light. So you usually see like where it kind of expands out into like a cone, right? There are these little white or these little yellow kind of squares that when you click and drag on them, they essentially what they do is they expand the area that the light hits. Or what you can do is you can push in with your camera and get a different angle so it doesn't really show. Or add another light. You can add another target light if you want, because in general, when we, when we are lighting scenes, especially for video production, you usually have a key light, which is the main light that lights your source, and then you have a light to the side, which is a fill light, which fills in the shadows of the source, and then you usually have some kind of like backlighting or lighting farther up to kind of highlight the back of them. And so there's a lot. Lighting is a whole monster in and of itself, especially in 3D. This is what I prepared for you guys today, so it just took a second to load up here. But oh great, cool. So if I go over into my thing and I hit the key light, you can see right here on the key light there's this little button or this little thing, and if I pull it out, it'll expand that light a little bit further, and as I push it in, you see that it focuses the light more, and then if I pull it out, it expands it a little more. And then you can also take those lights then and move them around, right? Like if you're having trouble moving it in this space right here because you're kind of having trouble navigating the area, right, which is normal, you're getting used to it, right? You can up here in the corner, click this button and it brings you to your quad view, and you can essentially move the light that way. So if I wanted to, right, because right here I'm looking at it tells you where your view is right here. I'm looking at the top of my scene. So from like up to down, oh, wrong way, this way, right? I'm looking from up here down. And so you can take this light and then move it around in this scene so that it kind of stays within the same area, right? You can move that in. Let's say I want it closer. I'm going to move it closer, but then I want it further. You get the gist of it. So good question. There's also, I did not want to do that. Let me undo. Oh, this scene's going to take a minute. My computer is my computer's working hard today. But good question. Let's go to Jessica.
As I was watching the motion graphic and typography videos, I was surprised to know that text itself can be animated or given the impression that it is moving across the screen when it's not. I used to think that big flashy words were just a way to get attention, but I didn't know that just by changing the font style or the size or the timing, that it can actually create an impact on the viewer. As I was watching the motion graphic and typography videos, I was surprised to know that
Yep. Yeah, the typography, I used to hate it when I first started school. And then like I've grown to really like it, especially like in this example that you show. This is a way they're breaking it, right? But they're staying along a grid because of where the text is placed and the way that it's rotated. It's like hitting each other at a 90-degree angle. It's perpendicular to each other. So it's just it makes it really cool. And then the H doubles as the I for rail. And there's just really creative things that you can do with type. And there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can find on like Pinterest and on Instagram with motionographers who use type in different ways. So let's go to Yvette.
Okay, hello, this is Yvette Sorlosano, and I'm I'm going to be talking about the type animation with the different fonts that we had to download and all that. Here, there's like a bunch of fonts we had to download, and I was very surprised there were so many of them. But then again, I do like options, so that's great. Um, I had really fun. I had a lot of fun with this, honestly. It was something I never thought I would do, but I've seen a bunch of this kind of like animations and like videos and tutorials and stuff, and so the fact that I myself did it, I felt like I accomplished something like big. It was like a big, huge leap for me, so I love that. Um, for any issues I had during this assignment, I think the only issue that I had was the rendering. At the time I didn't finish the first assignment, and so the rendering was still kind of like a gray area. So the rendering part, like putting this into, the other program to like put it into a video was, a bit of a challenge. But I ended up figuring it out because Belle helped me. The I guess something with my downloads was the issue. This is my personal computer, and it kept putting it on like the wrong file, so I had to like search for it. I had to dig deep into my files to like find the video, and um, so I figured it out eventually. But um, I would like to know how to kind of figure out where to put it, like to let me pick where my videos and files go, because it doesn't allow me to save it into my Adobe Schooling for some reason. I'm not sure why. It says I can't. So I was wondering if there's like a way. It always just goes straight to my downloads. I can't do it any other way in my Adobe. So I'm not sure, but that might be my computer issue rather than like the Adobe itself. So I don't know. What else? I don't really have any specific questions. Oh, actually, I do. Yes, I do. I was actually curious if this was a like a good option for a font. Personally, I thought it was because how crisp.
Okay, let me address the first issue that you had with the rendering, Yvette. So you come up to composition, and then here's what I was talking about as far as the rendering in the media encoder or rendering in the render queue. The render queue is what you will use for transparent videos, and we'll talk about that maybe later because you don't use it very often. But if you guys still want to learn how to do that, let me know and I will teach you. As far as the media encoder goes, you'll click on that there. So you go to composition, render to media encoder. You can also use the shortcut here. Let me see here. The shortcut Control plus Alt plus M will send it automatically. It'll send whatever composition you're into the media encoder. And so that is what did I do here? I accidentally opened the render queue. Let me just make this smaller. And so what's happening is that the output file right here specifically is where you select where it's going to go. So right now it's going to send it to the GCC thing, the Art 184, to the bouncy ball, and then to this AME, a different folder. But I don't want it to go there, so I'd click the bouncing ball, and then I would create a new folder that says renders or something, and then put it into there. And you can always keep a master folder of all your renders. In fact, that's a good idea, but you should always keep one render with the original project file as well. But yeah, that's how you do the rendering. And as far as the font selection that you chose, yeah, any kind of bold sans serif font is generally a good idea. It's super popular still right now. It's very modern looking, new looking. So yeah, good choice on that. Let me see what else you have to say.
Kind of simple it is. I picked the hind light, I think it was. I don't know why, it kind of just caught my attention because of how crisp it looked. And yeah, here's the fine light here. And it was really fun. I liked it a lot. There was many different options, but I ended up picking this one that was very nice. But I think my favorite parts of this was the easing and then the fade part. Personally, I do like the fading per letter more than the word for word, because the word for word looks very choppy. It looks like stuff are missing, where like the per letter looks more smooth and clean. It's like, look how nice it is. It's like, oh, I can't. So I love it when animation is just super smooth and like loose. Like, it looks so detailed, so nice. Love it. Let me see here. Overall, it went very well. It did take a little time, but it was no issue. I ended up finishing it. Um, I think this is just something I'm gonna use in the future. Definitely when I do my animations and I want to like put up my info and stuff. By the way, speak of, I put my Instagram, and I didn't have a website, but in the future I probably will put like a website to like commissions or whatever. I don't know. We'll find out. And then my Adobe, not my Adobe, my
You want to make sure you check spelling too on these. And this is for everyone. In fact, I did it earlier today. And I was like reading it. I was like, this is wrong. This should be a T right here. But yeah, if you don't have a website right now, that is okay. Don't include websitename.com, because someone will go there. And since we are using these at the end of class to use in our thing, you can keep that right now, but I will mention in that for you, Yvette, to change a little bit later. But other than that, yeah, it looks really good. And when you get that smooth animation that you're looking for, it feels very accomplishing. So good job in the class so far. Good job to everyone so far. And let's move forward. Here we go with Juliana.
I feel like the video tutorials helped a lot during doing these. I've only done the first two, the one in After Effects and the one on Cinema 4D. I haven't done the third one yet. When I was in After Effects, I would accidentally like double click something. Oops, not that one. Oh, something like that, and I couldn't figure out how to like get away from it. I have like since then realized I was just opening up different little things. In Cinema 4D, this part I had a hard time seeing all of it. it wasn't until like I discovered I could move it around with this hand, because I was like, how like this section would be all I saw for a while.
Hey Juliana, so that's the question from that you asked us last week. So um, I'll give you credit for this one this time, but I need you to ask a new question next week. But yeah, good call on that, and then you found out how to do that. So cool. And now we have Bear.
Hello. Throughout this week for the typology assignment, I had a problem with the fade section of the video because when I was watching the live sessions, it said on the right side of After Effects there was going to be a folder that said Animation Presents, and I couldn't find that one on mine. So I had messaged on Canvas, and while I waited, I had looked on the Creative Cloud to search through the plugins to see if I could find it. And I did find like different types of effects, but it wasn't like the Animation Presents that was on the video. So I ended up just Googling how to do a fade effect on single letters, and then I also Googled how to do fade effect on whole words on After Effects, and then I figured out how to do the single fade and the whole fade on the letters just from um working through from copying the YouTube video. But on the YouTube video, it had where the letters were for each the single fade for the letters. They had where the letters were enlarging every time. So I didn't change the scale of the words. So I just left it, and then it easily just faded through. But other than
So I remember talking to you about this, Bear, and yeah, you ended up. I think what you ended up doing is like a more complex way. So there's also things called text animators, which are nested inside of the text itself. But what happens is, first of all, I want to commend you on going through a Google deep dive and also like trying to find it on Adobe's website, because that is what you should be doing. That is what you end up doing when you don't know stuff. And that's what I do when I don't know stuff, is I look it up and I do a little research and I spend some time reading. But so what that is it usually means the panel on the side is closed. So if you look over here, now I no longer have that effects and presets panel, right? I've got the info, audio, blah, 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 further down. So it's not here. What do? You go up at the top of the screen, there's this window bar. You're going to click on that and it's going to give you a drop down menu. And all here from Align up at the top all the way down to Wiggler, these are different panels that you can have open inside of After Effects. And so the one that you want to pick is the effects and presets. And notice there is a Control 5. So if you accidentally hit Control 5, it'll hide that. But then if I'm out here and I don't see it, right, either I can navigate up to the window and drop down and pick it that way, or what I can do is hit that Control 5 and it should bring up, maybe it didn't, you know what, it didn't, because I am in a different program that is doing, it's because I have another program opened up and I'm not sure. It might just be because it is because of my OBS open up. But you know, if I go down here and do it manually, right, and hit effects and presets, I'll click on that and then it shows up on the side. And then it might be furled, you know, might be unfurled or furled up, either way. That's how you do that. And so this window up here tells you like how you can change essentially your workspace, right? Because like another thing you guys might accidentally do is you might accidentally close out your composition so that there's nothing there. What do? I'm freaking out. I can't work, right? You just go back up to window, and down here under this section, this is what's going to be inside of your viewport or the scene, right? Your stage. And so you'll just go to window and then to composition main ball, and it brings that back up for you. And so those are kind of some navigation tips for you guys for any issues that you run into in the future. Let me go on to Megan.
Hi, I just wanted to ask, so by the end of the semester, do we just take all of our like projects that we've made and create like a portfolio of all our works, or like at least the more important ones? Or do we just, is it just like a final animation, like our own original?
Well, you guys are like copying me at this point. We're gonna get a little bit more creative week after week, right? But right now, it's just little things at a time because we are gonna create that portfolio, and then we're gonna combine all our animations together and and put that into what we call a reel, which is a highlight of all of your work. Let me see here, and then finally Nick. Hey Nick, I don't know why the audio's not working on this. Let me try and open it again, see if that works. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I also notice you're using Cool Cam. Try and get OBS downloaded onto your system. It's called Open Broadcast Studio, System Studio. It is a free program to use, and that's kind of what I want you guys to be using to record your videos. But Nick, go ahead and ask me the question via ask it to me via like a message inside of Canvas and I can answer. Or actually a better idea, don't do that. I want you to put it in Slack so that we can all hear your question and then answer it. And you don't have to re-record it. You can just type it up in there. But yeah, from now on I would just, moving forward, as soon as you can, start using OBS and not the Cool Cam. So unless that's like something that's overlaying, but I don't think so. I don't know. All right. Okay. I also have a question from Sarah online right now about importing audio into After Effects. Audio in After Effects natively just sucks. It is not good. It just, for some reason, what'll happen is it'll play and then all of a sudden it drops in pitch really low and things go slow. And they sound warped and weird. And that's just because After Effects doesn't handle audio very well. My workflow, right? Back to the workflow that I like to use when it comes to After Effects is I like to, or like any kind of videos that I'm making, I'll create something in After Effects. And then I move it into, once I'm done, I render it and then move it into Premiere Pro to add the audio and to like add any kind of other little touches to like splice things up and put them together if I want to. And then I export it. So you can use that workflow if you want, but Premiere Pro, it's not as dense as like After Effects or Cinema 4D or anything. But yeah, audio inside of After Effects sucks, and we'll get a little bit more into that because we are going to be doing voiceovers a little bit later in class. So because we're going to be doing little infographics. If you guys wonder what those are, you guys can look those up on online. Just Google animated infographics and you guys can see what they look like. And it's just giving you a bunch of information and animating through it. So but yeah, good question there. So I would, for now, just avoid the audio, especially if it's like a long thing. It's just not playing at all for some reason. I wanted to sync up an animation with audio, but I can't. Okay, yeah, so take a video of that for me, Sarah, if you can just like show me a screen capture of kind of what's going on, because maybe the layer audio is turned off or it could be your levels is down. So when you're on that layer, when you're in that audio layer, I want to see what your timeline looks like. And then when you go into, when you click on the layer, I want you to hit L once and then hit it again. The letter L for love, right? Hit it once. Let me see what happens. Hit it again so I can see what happens after that, because it shows like, it'll show your levels or then it shows your decibel levels. So if you can show me that, I can see it, and we'll adjust it from there. But yeah, if you don't, I mean, if you want to animate to audio, that is generally what we do right away, because the audio is very important. But at this moment, we're just not doing that, because at the end of class, we're going to put music to a reel. So you're not going to have any of the audio playing at the end. But good job, class. Good questions. I'm going to jump kind of right into the surreal and real project. So last class, I had a little bit of difficulty with like the walls, right? And then I also had a little bit of difficulty with the picture frame, because I was having trouble finding where that image went into, let me go here, where that image actually sat inside of Cinema 4D. And so, oh, I don't want to do that. Let's back out of there. All right. So I kind of created a new scene here. Same stuff, created the box, went into polygon mode, right? Well, let's look over here. I created a box, because you'll start off with just the studio. I deleted the camera first. Let me type this in here so you guys can follow along. Type. So I deleted the camera. I hid the backdrop, the studio backdrop. And then I created a box, created a cube. And then I made the cube editable. Do you guys know, do you remember, whoever's in the chat, how you make it editable? Answer there. And if not, I'll tell you guys in a second. And then what I did is I went into polygon mode and I selected the top part of the box, the roof, right? And the one side, and deleted them. And so then what I did, because right, you have all the lights and stuff in here, and then we went through the asset browser that is up here in the corner. We went through the asset browser and started picking out objects to place into the scene, and we used the place tool right there, which is a newer thing inside of Cinema 4D, and we use that because it snaps to other geometry, right? And so I was having a little bit of issues, and the scene was looking a little funny, so I kind of just started over and did this. The shortcut to make a cube or any kind of geometry editable is the letter C. Let me type that here. C equals editable. Yeah, geometry. So if you select it up here in the objects and you hit C, it'll make it editable. And then we created some instances of, I believe, the little tables here. And we did that by selecting the main object and then holding this button down here and going to instance and letting go. And so that's kind of where we left off. We had started building that. I kind of get a little bit more into it, and you guys will see like how detailed this scene can get because we want it realistic, right? So I added some a sofa and some chairs in here because this is kind of stuff you would see around my house, right? You'd see a rug. I'll show you guys kind of how to make a rug today, like a quick one. And these were all in the asset browser. Now, a couple things I did run into, right? Like if I one thing I wanted to add were more objects into this bookshelf right here. And so I had looked up for candles, but some of them in the asset browser have this little cloud with like the slash through. That just means for some reason with our with our license, it's not included, which sucks, but I mean, we get a bunch of free stuff anyways, so I can't really complain, and we could eventually model it ourselves. But yeah, so there's some things you won't be able to use, some things you will be able to use, but these were all things that I was able to collect out of the asset browser, and to get my scene as detailed as possible, right? I have a television here, some plants put in here, a record player. I put some magazines out on the table, some records on this table that I have right here. Put the rug in, put some filing cabinets, and I started to put like stuff on the wall, right? So you want to start thinking about this, like, and you guys can do any kind of realistic room within a house, right? Or even like an outdoor scene if you wanted to do like, if you were confident enough to do like a street scene, but remember you have to have some kind of background on there. I've had someone last class do kind of like an outdoor by a bus stop, which was interesting. But, you know, you could do a bathroom, kitchen, whatever, because there's all sorts of assets within this browser. Just make it as realistic as possible, and start thinking about like scale of things, right? Like especially, let me do this here. Let me actually move down here, zoom in, do a little rotation. Like notice, I had to make sure the scale of the glass, the wine glass and the bottle of wine versus the lamp were appropriate, right? I'm not looking for exact. I'm not going to sit here with like a digital tape measure and look through your guys' stuff like that. But I want it to look as real as possible, like it's something that you would walk into, right? And so part of the issues that I had on Tuesday's class was the texture, like changing the texture of the wall. And so I ended up doing a brick, which worked really well, but I'll show you guys also how to do the wallpaper. And then I threw down the tile on here. And so let me show you guys what I will do is I'm going to show you how to, we're going to take off this brick right here. Then we're going to, I'll leave the tile on because we went over that and changing, and it'll be very similar, right? But we'll take off this brick and I'll show you guys kind of what I did here. So these are the tags, remember, material tags. You do not want to start deleting materials within your material. If this is open, don't start deleting materials in here, because what's going to happen is it's going to delete materials off of these objects that you start using. We don't want that. It'll start to be issues. So if you notice it's kind of clustered up here and there's a bunch of stuff and you don't know, hey, is this something that's being reused or not? If you go up to the inside of the materials panel, right in here, you're going to go to edit, and then inside of edit there is a tag or an option that says delete unused materials, and you just click that and it takes everything out that you're not using in your scene. And so that's like a great way to just kind of keep that uncluttered. But let's zoom out of here real quick and then change our angle a little bit. And so we want to put a material on the wall because as of right now there is no material on the wall. And so we go into up at the top. This is right now we're in object mode. We want to be in polygon mode. So I am going to select polygon mode and make sure that I select my room object inside of the objects tab. And I'm going to click on this side of the wall. I'm going to hold down shift and click on this wall, and then hold down shift and click on this one. So you can see they're all selected and all highlighted. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my asset browser and I'm going to type in wallpaper because we had an issue with the wallpaper last time. I'm going to grab this wallpaper number 3 and I'm going to drag it into my scene here. And now you see we have the wallpaper on, but it's rather large, right? We need to do the tiling on it again. Oh, don't do that. We need to change the tiling on it, and then we also want to update this color because the color right now is pretty crazy. So what you do is you go over here to the material tag and you're going to click on it once. And it's going to bring up the parameters essentially down here. And we want to increase the tile. We want to increase the tiles U and V, which is the horizontal and vertical tiling of the pattern, right? And so let me just try 30 and 30. Because the higher you change the tiling, the more it's going to show on there within whatever radius you're looking at, or whatever, you know, areas you're looking at. So if I were to zoom in here, let's do a render preview. Might kind of look weird. That's okay. We're looking right now for the scaling of the pattern, is that it's mostly normal. It's still kind of big, so I'm going to just increase that more to like 50. And when you're increasing or decreasing things and you're just kind of trying to figure it out, what I suggest doing is shooting up to a high number, like if like 0 to 50 or 0 to 25, right? And then if it doesn't look that, then jump even more. Like let's say you do 25 and it's still rather large and you want to go a lot smaller, then go to 100 or to 75, like jump up an extra 50 units or whatever, and see what it looks like that way. And then you kind of get an idea of the range of how it works, and then you can hone in your numbers a little bit more that way, or hone in your values is what I mean to say. And so let's do a render preview right now and see if it's a little bit better. It's not my favorite, but it's acceptable. I mean, that's okay, right? And so, yeah, so I've adjusted the tiling on it so if it's a little bit better. And you guys will see when I put the brick back on what I'm talking about with the tiling. You'll be able to understand it a little bit more because the bricks are a more noticeable pattern. And it'll go the same with your tile too. And so we want to go back down here. We want to change the color of it. And so we have clicked on this tag once so far, but we want to double click it and open up the actual material inside the attributes. So the first time you clicked it once, just to kind of select it and go change the tiling, and now we have the attributes turned on. And you want to tick on this tiny little box here that says color. Don't click this. Again, these are keyframes. We want to just check mark this box. So as soon as I do that, you will see that all of a sudden it changes the color of my wallpaper, and then I can just essentially change it to whatever color I want it to be. Right now it's probably going to look very, like, the darker the colors, the harder it is with the light. I will say that. So I would stick to light colors unless you want like a really dark wall. Like right now it's a really dark yellow, like a super saturated yellow color, which you know, to each his own, but it's not necessarily my favorite color of wall to have in a living room. But yeah, that's starting to look good, right? So that would be an acceptable wallpaper. I wouldn't knock you for necessarily having that color wall as long as the other stuff in your scene looks acceptable with it, right? And so that's kind of how you deal with your color of the wallpaper and the tiling of it. Now let's go ahead and we'll delete that. And I want to get back to my brick wall so I can really show you guys more about the tiling, right? So I will zoom out so I can see a little bit more of my scene. And then I'm going to go up here to I'm already in polygon mode, right? So I'm going to click this button up here, this one, in order to get my selection tool. And then I'm going to make sure I am selecting the room object because I renamed it, right? It used to be cube, but I renamed it to room. And I'm going to click on that one, hold shift, click on this wall, and hold shift and click on this wall. And then I'm going to look for brick. And you see this brick material. Now let me make a point here. A material is something that is wrapped around the geometry, and you can tell because it's a sphere, right? Make sure that you guys are reading these little areas like up at the top, these different identification like folders, right? Because these are images, and this is, you'll hear what I'm talking about later, but these are images which we don't necessarily want right now. We want to put materials. We want these specifically on to be on the floor and on the walls, but there are ways we can kind of work around that a little bit more. So I've got these all selected. I'm going to grab my brick that I want to use. I'm going to just drag it onto that selection, and notice I'm going to click off, and you can see like this is not realistic. That brick being that large in a room this size is not a realistic It's not real. It's not what you would normally see. Like, that would be interesting. This makes it look surreal because of the, it almost looks like now a house for a mouse, which would actually be, that's a cute idea if anyone executes that. Brownie points with me. A house for a mouse, right? So let's change the tiling again. We're going to single click on that. Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me move my face out of the way. Good thing I'm going over this again. We're going to single click on the material tag right there. And that's going to bring up the general attributes, right? And then we're going to go down here to the tiles U and the V. And now the one thing I want you guys to notice is that brick is not dimensionally the same. It's not a square shape, right? It's elongated in one direction and short in the other. So usually the width and the height are different. And so I have to keep that in mind when I'm scaling these tiles, right? So right now it's a 1-to-1 ratio. Let's try that. Let's try 5 and 5, right? Because I don't want to scale it. That's a little small, but it still looks stretched, right? It still doesn't look like real brick. So let's go ahead and do change the vertical to 6. Nah, we want to drop this down. Let's change it to 4. Not my biggest. Let's change it to 3. There we go. And sometimes, like the tiling, like if I were to do 50 and 30, that's way too many bricks. That's not realistic. But the reason I have smaller values here is because the bricks are already, it's like already a specific pattern on there. It's not these tiny little dots. It's just going to kind of depend. You'll see right away even when it's not rendered, you will see right away if it's kind of working or not for something that's a very strong pattern like the brick. And so that's how you put the brick on. Same with the tile. You're going to do the same thing. You will select you'll go into polygon mode. You will make sure you're on your selection tool. You'll make sure that you are selecting your room because it's still part of the room, right? So you want to make sure you have that selected. You're going to click the floor, just the floor, and then you're going to find, so I just put in here floor, and it gives you a bunch of different options. And there's tile. Now I actually used this black tile, and so I grabbed it and I dragged it onto my floor, and then it showed up right here. Okay, but how is it not black, right? I didn't want the black tile. I didn't think it would necessarily look good with the scene. And so I clicked on it once and I changed the tiling on it, updated that so it looked more realistic. And then I double clicked the material tag and it came up here and the color was black. Well, I added, make sure you're in, make sure that if you go into basic, right, you double click it and you show up here under the basic tab right here. You should make sure that color is checked. And if it's checked, then you go into the color tab right next to the basic and you go here and then you just change the color through this right here. And I updated my couch colors that way as well. So that's kind of how you can adjust certain colors with certain materials. Not all materials are the same. And so you might have to navigate around a little bit and you might have some troubles with it. And if you do, ask those questions in Slack and maybe someone can help out with that. But that's generally like how you add these materials like wallpapers, flooring, tiles, things of that sort to these areas. Now, I also had a little bit of an issue over here adding a picture to the picture frame, right? So let's go ahead and do that right now. Let's add another picture. So I'm going to go over here. First of all, let's add the picture next to this one. I'm going to zoom in here. All right. And I'm going to make sure that I am out of polygon mode and I'm going to go back to object mode. So I'm going to click up here. That way if I grab anything, it's like selecting an object and not parts of that object. Or not like sides, right? Because the geometry is made up of different, essentially like panels, right? And each one of those panels are facets. Almost kind of like, think of like a gem, right? There's different facets to it. And then in polygon mode, you're selecting each one of those facets. But in object mode, you're selecting the whole thing. And I'm going to go up here into my asset browser again, and I'm going to type picture. And we are going to grab another frame and just kind of drag it onto the wall here. And then I'm going to grab my place tool, and I'm going to zoom out. Might not have, I don't know where it put it. I think it put it kind of in the middle. Yes, it put it. It will center, I think, in the middle of your scene. So you might have to come around and grab it like this. But I'm going to grab that and just kind of move it over. Oh, I'm scaling it right now. I'm going to undo that real quick. Just kind of grab it and drag it. And now the one thing that happens, you know, we talked about, oh, let me get back here. Zoom out, move over. The one thing that you guys, oh, I see little feet under my door from a cat. Will notice is that it kind of snaps on the wrong way here. If you grab to rotate, it will not rotate it like this. Not when you're in the place tool. You have to be in your either ERT, right? So, of course, to rotate, you hit R. But let me put this back. You're going to hit R and bring up your orbiting, your gyroscope, like, and then you're going to just kind of drag it up this way, and you can hold shift. Shift should work. It doesn't always work. There we go. We're at 90 degrees. The other thing that you can do is, let's say it's there and you don't want to click and drag. You can just select the object up here in your object panel. Just click on it once right here. And then you're going to go down to the attributes. And you're going to click on coordinates. Coordinates right there. And then you're going to take the rotation and just put it at 0. And then once I do that, it flips it and perfectly at a 90 degree. Or it was at a 90 degree angle. Now it's back at 0. So, and then I'll select my place tool. But as soon as I do that, it flips it back. So when it comes to this, it's at least placed on your wall, right? I'm going to go to the move tool, which is E. And then I'm just going to move it with, you know, move the X value, move the Y value until I get to a place I like. Now, great, we have the frame on the wall, but we want to put something in that picture frame, right? We don't want it to be blank. Unless you have a ghost family, and then no one can see who you are, but we are not. Thankfully, I'm still here and around. So let's do it as such. So I'm going to go back up to the picture frame. I'm going to unfurl right there. Oop, and get out. And then there usually is, there's something, some kind of object that says picture, right? And you're going to want to click on that material tag of that picture. You select the picture and then you click the material tag, and it's going to bring the material tag down here. Now, if I click on basic tag and coordinates, I'm not seeing anything. This is more specifically to like the attributes of the object and not the material. And so what I want to do is I want to double click that material and bring this up. And so it says to place the picture here. Under the layer. So not under the layer. Actually, it's going to be under, I think, diffusion. Let me go through. We're going to look through these. Here. I think under, it will work under, because like I said, certain objects are different, right? Depending on what they are. And so let's try and put it under the texture, under the layer color, which happens to be under reflectance. I don't know if it will work. We're going to try, and then if not, we will try a different technique. So we're going to, let's look up in here. This is what I did last time. This is why I said to pay attention to those folders that these are in, right? So I'm going to put in a let's look for a landscape. Okay. So there's multiple options here for a landscape. You would think you can click this and drag. That is wrong. This is a scene. This is an entire scene with like objects and everything in it. That is not what you want. When you want to put an image into something, you got to look for the actual image there. So I am going to click on probably this one right here. And then I'm going to bring it over and I'm going to drag it into that texture. And then it should have updated. Maybe this one doesn't have the glass. Let's hit the render, viewport render. Yeah, not sure why specifically, because I'm not seeing it actually in like any of the reflections or anything. Let's undo that, right? Because you'll see that it worked on this one, this picture, right? There's an actual picture in there. But the light, right, there's glass on here, so the light's reflecting off the glass and everything like that. Let me remove this here. Let's just delete that from there. All right, basic shader. And remember, undo is Control Z. Let me go. Under layer mask, maybe? Let's try that. I'm not gonna, I think there's like not a picture actually in this. Is it showing up here? I don't know, there should be like a picture in it. Maybe it's turned around the wrong way. So let me hit R, hold down shift and drag it 180 degrees. Oh wait, that was just the, make sure you select the actual object. And then yeah, I don't know if there's actually, let's pick a different picture frame. I don't know why that one's not really working there. Here. Oh, and another thing I want to mention, if you're in the asset browser, just you can click to select looking for all of the things within the asset browser, or you can specifically look up objects or materials or media, right? Like media would be great just for the image, but let's try this one real quick. Let's place this one. Again, it's going to be in the middle of the room, most likely. We're going to bring it over here. I'm going to select my place tool. And then I am going to place it on the, oh, not do that. We are going to place it on the wall. And then I'm going to set it to 0 degrees. So it's flat. And then I actually want to change the size. So remember, we just click on it once, and then we go to frame, and then you can change the frame size, right, to make it bigger. So you update your dimensions. So I want it a little longer, a little taller, and then I'm going to hit E for the move tool, and I'm just going to slide it over. There we go. So it looks like there's actually a picture inside of this one. The other one I didn't really see anything, but this one actually has the glass and nothing around it, so there must be one. So I am going to unfurl it, select the picture, click on the texture tag or the material tag, and then if I unfurl, it'll look like this. There's a little arrow next to the material right there. I'm going to unfurl that and then place that image, oh, not keyframe it, place the image into the layer. So let me do landscape again. Oh, nope, that's not the spot. Sorry, guys. Let me go into under color, and then drop it into texture. And then I think it works. Yes. I believe we have successful image inside of it. Let's see. Yes, we do. I can already kind of see it. Again, right, the glass is reflecting. We can maybe turn that down a little bit, the reflectance of the glass. If I hit the material there, but you don't want to change glass reflectance. You don't want to change that as much. Let me see here. Yeah, I don't want you guys messing around with glass materials right away, like going inside and really messing with them. It's okay if they kind of look like that. That's not going to be that big of a deal. But I'm going to save it. And then now let's make a rug real quick. I'll show you guys how to make a rug. And then we'll start to animate. By the way, we'll get to the typography. Like I'll go through all that work on Monday or on Tuesday. So, all right. Let us add a rug. So essentially what a rug is, like the geometry that it is called a plane. And the planes can be accessed, all the geometry to start off can be accessed like right here. And so we're going to click on this one. We're going to click and hold down, and then we're going to select a plane right there. And then the plane will show up on the floor like in the middle, right? And so I'm going to, you can scale it or change it the way you want to, right? Because it's going to be flat. So I kind of want to, let's make it a little bit smaller than the one that's already on there. Move it kind of in the middle. Make sure I select, let me change my view here. I'm going to move that directly under the table. All right, so we've got like our rug placed. We've got a plane put on here, which is the rug. And we're going to go up to our asset browser, and we're going to type in carpet. And that's going to give you a bunch of different materials to work with. And so I'm going to just take one of these and I'm going to drag it down. The one that I have currently on the carpet on the bottom is this old rug, and you can change the tiling of the material in the same exact way that you did with like the brick wall and the wallpaper and stuff like that. So I am going to, let's just use a color that's going to stand out, right? This green. I'm going to grab that green. I'm going to drag and drop it onto the rug here. I'm going to hit R. Because let's see, it's just going to be like a shag carpet, I believe. Let's check and see kind of what that looks like. Yeah, no need to update the tiling. If you guys get a pattern that seems a little large or weird, you can update the tiling in there. I could update the color, right? If I wanted this to be more white, I could do that. But another thing that you guys can do is, you know, most rugs, I like my rugs to be flat, but not all of them are, right? There's usually something going on with the rug that doesn't make it flat. And so what you can do with that then is you can go up to your, let's rename this rug, and I will name it rug number 2 because I already have one in here. And I'm going to hit C to make it editable. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my polygon tool, and I'm going to select kind of some of these. I'm going to bring it up just a little bit, maybe take this edge, bring it up a little bit more, take like a few of these here, maybe move them a little bit in that way, kind of make it not look so perfect, right? I don't want to go too far, don't want to stretch it really, just mostly grabbing like 1 or 2 or 3, and remember holding shift can grab multiple. You just bring it up or down or something like that. And then what that does is it allows the geometry to essentially look like the rug is moved up in some spots. So yeah, that's a way to make a quick rug. It's not a perfect rug, but it's cool. And you know what it is, right, when it's on there. So yeah. Now what I want to do is I want to add a camera, right? Because this is not, we're just not making a scene. We want to create a video, right? This is an animation class, so let's animate, you know. And so usually scenes like this, You know, I don't know if you guys watch HGTV, but on HGTV, they like if they had a scene like this, what they would do is it would just be a slow camera, like a slow camera movement. They want you to kind of see what's there without having issues with like a fast moving camera. The biggest thing here is slow. We want a slow moving camera. It's not going to move far. You're not going to have a bunch of rotations or anything like that. We're essentially going to do what's called dollying. And a dolly is like when you push in or push out, right? Panning is when you look from left to right or right to left. Either way, this is panning. This is dollying. DOLLYING. And then, you know, there's zooming. Zooming happens with the lens, but we're not going to do that today. But those are just some terms you guys should know. So I am going to start from, let's get a good angle here. This is pretty good. And I'm going to add a camera. But first, before I add the camera, like this is really congested here. Remember to kind of, when you have limited real estate, to make a panel larger, you're going to click in the panel or just hover over the panel and you'll hit Shift Tab, and that makes this larger inside of, why isn't it doing it? Come on. Or Control Tab. Sorry, not Shift Tab, but Control Tab. That makes this larger. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to kind of select the ones that are together, and I want to group them so that I can clean this up. In fact, this is kind of harder for me to see like that because it pushes all the way screen. So I'm just going to kind of go like this because I also need this toolbar here. So a null, right, is just a container to hold things in. And so let's say all the sofas. I want to put all the sofas together because that's how I would categorize that with all the furniture, right? So in fact, I would categorize that with the rug. I would not do the flat screen TV. I would put that probably with the bookcase that it's in. But I would take the coffee table, the rug, or nope, let's just, you know how I'm going to do it? I'm going to do all the sofas. I'm going to hit this null. It doesn't matter, I guess, if I select them or not, but I'm going to grab that null and bring it down and then select these and drag them in until you see the downwards arrow, and then you let go. And then that creates like a folder, right? Now, if I were to select that null, it will move all of those things at once. So keep that in mind when you're grouping things like this. And you can pull things out of the group if you want. It's not permanent, but I just like to clean up my workspace sometimes. So I will name this sofa and chairs, and then I'm going to click there and just kind of do that. But like if I grab this null and I start to move it, you're going to see all the couches move. And that's a great thing for you guys to know for when you do your surreal scene, right? And so you would normally go, because we have limited time, I'm not going to go through that, but you would normally go through and you can clean up your scene that way. But I've got my scene kind of where I want my camera to start off. And so I'm going to click here and I'm just going to create a regular old camera. And then I am going to 35 millimeter is perfectly fine. You don't have to mess with any of the camera parameters, but I want to make sure that I'm looking through my camera because right now I am not. And so I want to click on this little camera, the little box thing right here. Remember, this little thing lets you look through the camera. And I want to make sure that I am in world mode here and I'm not in object mode, because if I go into object mode, it looks different. And it won't move your camera correctly. So make sure it's the world on there. So I want that selected. And now I am going to bring up my timeline here a little bit, and I am going to keyframe, make sure that your playhead is at the beginning, and I'm going to hit this button here. Now, what does this button do? This keyframes all of the parameters. It keyframes the scale, it keyframes your position and your rotation. In fact, if I go over into this attributes panel and I look at this, it is all keyframed, every single one of it. We're probably not going to touch you're not going to touch the scale. And that's okay. you have to, but like, or you do not want to touch the scale at all when it comes to camera movements. But let me see here. But that is what this button does, right? Instead of selecting each little keyframe by hand, clicking that button will select all the keyframes. Now, if I were to go to the F curve and look at that, that is going to be, it's going to be busy looking, right? You're going to see, if I drag this up here, you're going to see all these keyframes here now. Like if I click this camera and hit H right here, it's going to bring up all these keyframes. Now there's no value changes in it. That's why they look like straight lines. But yeah, that's kind of what you're going to end up seeing here. So let's go back to, we'll do that. Let me drag this down a little bit here. And I'm actually going to delete this. I'm going to hit Control Z. I don't want those keyframes here just yet, actually. So I'm going to delete all of those keyframes. Let me see here. If I just go to the camera and I just toggle off on all of these, I think I can hit like Control click. Maybe for the undoing you have to do it all manually. But the reason I wanted to undo that is because I want to check my project settings first to make sure that everything's correct. So I'm going to hit Control D, and that's going to bring up my project settings. First of all, we're in the wrong frames per second. We want to change it to 24. And I also want this to be 5 seconds long. I don't want it to be only 3 seconds, which it is right now. And so, you know, you can either do the math in your head, 24 times 5, because we want 5 seconds, 24 frames in a second, right? Or you can type it directly in here and it'll do the math for you. So if I hit 24 times 5, 120 frames. Nice and easy. That's why I like these programs, right? They do the math for you. And then we want to, so that looks all good. Then we're going to click back on the camera. Let's save our project, Control S. And now we can click on all those keyframes. So we're going to hit the keyframe button there. And then we're going to bring this all the way to the end here to the 120. And we're just going to slowly push in with our camera, right? We're going to do this in the quad mode, right? I don't want to be moving the camera. You can't move the camera necessarily in the view, right? You have to be in this mode to move it. So I just kind of want to move it slowly through the scene, just pushing forward, just slowly, not too far. The further you go, the faster it's going to go. So in fact, let me do it in this one. All right. See how my camera angle is like this? So I'm going to kind of just grab this from the top and just move in, and you can see it kind of moving. In fact, that might be too much camera movement. Let's do that. And then I'm going to hit R to bring up the rotation. I'm just going to, actually no, don't do rotation. Just do the movement for now. Just nice and easy, pushing through. And the best thing is you want to see things off camera, right? You don't want things all to be in view. It doesn't have to be in view because, like I said earlier, it sells that the world is bigger than what is in the frame, right? And so then if I'm going to look here, oh shoot. Don't forget to do this one thing. You're going to move the camera into the scene, and then you're going to click your keyframes. Record your keyframes. Remember, it doesn't auto record it like it does in After Effects. So I click that there. And now if I play, you're just going to see a nice slow scene. When you're in this view, it's going to go into whatever view you were working at. So I'm going to pause that, and you see here it's just going to nice pull in. The problem is that this is not a linear camera movement. We have to have, when it comes to cameras, there is no slowing down and speeding up necessarily when it comes to a shot like this. You want this to actually be linear. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my camera up there. And then I am going to pull up my F curve. Bring this up higher. I'm going to select this camera in all the positions, keyframes here, and I'm going to hit H to bring this in. And then because I'm only moving my position, right, and it's only really moving 3 of them, I'm just going to select them all, click and drag. I want all these keyframes here. And then I'm going to hit this button up here. This button makes it linear. That's what that means. This is, the spline is to make it, you know, curved, and this is linear. We want linear keyframes. And then I'm going to save it and then play it, and you guys will see what I mean. Nice and slow, nice slow pushing, right? And so then we're going to go through. The thing about this one, because I told you guys you want to download the template, right, and start working from the template, is because this I think is, I believe, is set up to be a viewport renderer. So if I click here, because if you're not rendering in the viewport renderer, it will be very long time for you guys to render this, because there's a lot of objects in here and a lot of different textures. So go to your render settings, right? And we're going to check that our 1920 by 1080. We want to change this because it's now 120. Or no, I'm sorry. Don't listen to that. This is resolution, not seconds. So just make sure that it's 1920 by 1080. And that we're in 24 frames a second, and that we change it from current frame to all frames. That's the biggest thing on this one. Change it to all frames. And then we want to go to viewport renderer right here. And we want to make sure that our transparency is checked here. Shadows are checked here. Reflections are checked here. And then we want to go into the filter part here. And we're going to click geometry only. It should be set up like this for you guys if you are using the template, right? That's why I want you to use the template. And then save, and you will select a destination. So I want to create a new folder that says realistic room PNG, right? Because that's where I'm going to save it, because we're saving everything as a PNG. I'm going to hit save. And then I am going to make sure my alpha channels turn on, although we won't use, you know, I don't believe there's transparency, but make sure that is turned on. And then we want to collect PNG format. This is how this should look. Pick your location, pick a PNG, or actually let's leave it as a TIFF file. That might be bigger. If it takes a long time doing a TIFF, that's okay. Then switch it to PNG, but let's do, the TIFF has the ability to do alpha channels as well. And then we'll close that out, and then we're going to hit render, and then it will render. And so that is what you will do for the realistic scene. Now I'm going to talk kind of a little bit about, and here real quick before I start talking about that. What you see down here, you notice it's not rendering right away. That's okay. It's preparing all of these frames for me. And so it might take a minute to prepare all this stuff, but then it'll eventually get going, and once it does, it'll start rendering everything out. Now, when you do your surrealism scene, you can work either in the box, or you can work with the stage, like the drop cloth shadow. Gosh, why can't I think of it? Oh, the studio backdrop. Words work for me. Words are hard. You can use a studio backdrop, or you can use a cube. And what I want you guys to do is you will take anything that you want in here, have fun with it, right? A great way to show scale comparison is to show, like, have a person in the scene or some kind of recognizable object that we know is big, right? So let's say that I had a new scene here, and let me copy this studio. Let me just copy this over real quick. Copy that into here. I am going to turn on the studio backdrop because I want to see that. And then I'm going to zoom out, zoom around. Okay, zoom in real quick. Let's show scale of something, right? So let's put in here Let's do like apples. We'll do fruit. We'll stick with fruit. And this is a Cinema 4D object, so I'm going to grab one here. I'm going to drop it in. And it should drop it in relatively super teeny tiny there, actually. You got to kind of zoom in and you notice that it kind of drops it halfway. Well, I'm going to bring that up, right? Then I want to change the scale of it, which is T. I'm going to make that nice and big. Ugh. I want an even scale though. I don't want it to be, let me make sure we're in object and not in world. Are we in world? No, wrong. Let's get out of that. Let's go into, let's click on the apple and do an even scale here, right? So let's do like 20, 20, 20. Now we have a big apple. The big apple. You can also use the place tool, right? This is nice. You can do this too. Do that, scale it this way, makes it a little easier. But like I want a bunch of apples in the scene, right? More than one. So instead of doing the instance or the copy, the controlled drag that would make a copy, right? We can do something that's kind of like a scatter brush tool. And it's called the scatter pen. And so you click the scatter pen, make sure you're on the apple. And if I go to the scatter pen, here's something cool you guys can do. If you go to the scatter pen, like attributes, right? You click on that pen and it'll bring this up. You can change different things like the radius of how big they are, the spacing between them, the splat spacing, not quite sure what that does specifically. If I go into object, let me see here. Here's some transform. Okay. Here's some options that you can do with the ranges, right? So you can take, like if you want a bunch of them that are big and small, you can have a minimum range and a maximum range. So like, let's say I'm going to change this to like, I want them to be anywhere 50% to 100% as large as they are right now. And then I'm going to, don't worry about that. You can do that with position as well. And so then I'm going to just click and kind of come in here and just start clicking, and you can drag. But notice how there's some small, there's some big. It's doing it based on the size of the original apple. Or, let me see, it's the original one that I did not scale up. It's doing it based on that. Let me see here if I can change. I want them to be big. Maybe what I do is this, right? I draw that. And then I go into the scatter. And then I can scale them all this way. Yeah, I think I could do that, right? So then 20, 20, 20. And then but they're still different sizes, right? Because they're varying. They're all varying. So this size is still not the same as this one right there. You can see the size difference, right? So you guys can do that. That's like a great way to show a variety of things. And let's say for some reason I didn't want this apple to be right here. I would make sure I'm back in my object, like my selection tool. And then I'm going to click on the scatter brush right there, and I'm going to hit, because this is all the instances of the apples, I'm going to hit C. And what that is going to do is it is going to make every single one of them editable. Now I can go in there and I can change any of these apples that I want. Like if I wanted to change this apple right here and I wanted to bring it in, I can do that. Now if it were still under the scatter thing, it will not do that. So you want to make sure that you select the scatter and then you hit C to make it editable, and you can change those. Making them gold, right? That's not realistic. So let's see. A great thing to do in this one is like textures that like metallic textures, right? So I'm going to drop that onto the one apple. I'm going to zoom in here. Let me see if that worked. I do not think it did. Drop that down. No, it said it worked. Maybe just the stem. You should see it right away. Okay, that didn't work. Maybe I dropped it on the wrong one. Let me just delete that. Let me select the apple, go back in here, grab that gold, and drop it right on. Oh, you don't want to work? Bring it onto the mesh. There we go. So it initially dropped it onto the apple null, but I needed to go into the apple object and just drop it here, right onto that one. Notice that you could see the other material that was on it in the first place. And so now all of my instances of that apple are going to be gold. Now I have a bunch of gold apples, right? Cool, good start. Let's add some other stuff in here that is not to show scale. So let's show, let's see if they have a mouse. They do. They have a little tiny mouse guy. Let me bring him in. This says scene though. I would actually try and avoid anything that says scene. So let me see if I can. Let's see what it does. Oh yeah, because this is an animated mouse. So let's stay away from that right now. And what it didn't get rid of my other thing, but it opened another project right here. So I'm just gonna exit out of that. No, I don't want to save it. And then I'm gonna just go back here. And so let's just look under. Let's exit out of there. Let me bring this down. And we're getting short, so let's just look up under here under objects. We'll look under another food object, right? Let's make these coffee beans. Let's get a coffee bean in here and make it massive. All right. You guys can get super creative with this too. It does not have to be it doesn't have to be simple like this. I encourage you guys to watch the other videos and to really try. It won't let me because it's got that little thing. So let's find one that is nope, cherries, can't use that. Man, they really kind of, let's do the corn. Let's bring the corn down in here. Okay, cool. Cool, we got the cone. It's cone. I'm going to hit R to kind of rotate it. I'm going to make all of these be upside down, right? Because I want them, they're cool, they're different. Something you forgot to, Brian just joined and asked, something you forgot to ask in the video was if C4D used GPU acceleration by default or if there's a preference you need to set. I believe it. I would have to look into that one more. I can't answer that question for you right away, Brian, but I can look into that and see what that is. I believe it does use your just GPU by default, but like, I mean, it has to essentially because it's like creating the graphics, right? But there might be there's other render engines that you can use that use different parts of your computer. So, you know, that's also another option, but I believe it is by default. Yes. Now, that is $1 million question that I'm not willing to stake I will call on a lifeline for that one. So, like I said, I'll look into it a little bit more for you, Brian. But let's get back to here real quick, just so I can real quick add these in. And I've got the corn now. I'm going to scatter some corn around here. Remember that default variation is on. So cool. You guys get the kind of gist of like making a surrealistic scene. And we want to do the same thing with the camera movement, right? So we want the camera to be, let me get the type thing on here. Ooh, here. Okay. Camera movements are linear. We do not want eased camera movements. Now for the realistic scene, it will just be one camera movement. It went off screen. You guys get it though. And for the surrealism scene, you will have the camera movement. But then you can animate all the rest of the stuff, like animate other things within other objects in the scene, right? So I want to animate, let's animate the corn real quick. So I'm going to, let's say I want them all to like levitate, right? So I'm going to grab this scatter brush of the corn. You want to rename it. I'm not going to for time's sake. And I'm going to hit C on here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into these and I'm going to select them all. And I am going to make sure I am at the beginning of my timeline. Let's check our settings, our Control D to see our project settings. 24 frames a second. Let's do 120, so we have 5 seconds. And now I'm going to keyframe this one. I just want to keyframe all of their positions because I'm just going to make them levitate. And in fact, I just want to change the Y position on them. So then I'm going to click that, and then I'm going to take my playhead, move it forward, and I'm going to move this up. And it's going to move all of them. It doesn't move my original one. It just moves the smaller ones. Now, let's say I wanted to offset all of these pieces of corn, right? Because I don't want them all levitating at the same time. Right now, if I were to hit, let me keyframe them first. Don't forget, make sure it's keyframed. If it's yellow, it means you haven't keyframed it yet. As long as when it's red, it means you're recording. And so I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to close this out so we can see this a little bit more. And then I'm going to drop down here. Drop down to see all my instances of the corn. Okay. And then I'm going to start. No, it doesn't do that. Come on now. Let's see if it does it again. Let me try this. Hit C on these again. There we go. So just make sure you hit C. Let me try this. I'm going to go back a bunch. 1 second, guys. Let's get that scatter brush on there. Put a few things of corn. I'm going to move my camera a little bit. I'm going to hit the scatter. Click on that, and I'm going to hit C. And I'm going to click on all these instances and hit C and make them all objects. Okay, there we go. You have to make sure that it looks like this and not an instance. You don't want it to look like an instance of it. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of these and I'm going to make sure I'm at the beginning of my timeline. I'm going to keyframe. Notice you will see that you're animating multiple because it says mixed here, which means that you have multiple objects selected. And then I'm going to bring my playhead to the end at the 120 seconds. And I'm going to change my, let's change the position of them up like that. Not too far. I don't want them to levitate too far off the ground. And then I want to select all of them again and keyframe that. Great. Now I'm going to hit H to bring this up. And I'll play it. Awesome. They slowly levitate. But they're all at the same time, right? I want to offset them so they look like a little more interesting here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take each one of these keyframes and I'm just going to start to bring them in. Same with the ends. Randomly. Oh, that may be too far. That was the big one. Undo that. Undo that. Grab them separate, drag, grab it, drag. Go over here, grab these ones and drag, this one and drag, this one there. Let's bring this one in a little bit more. And then when I play it back, they're all going to levitate at different times. See? So, and then you can go into the F curve. And you can change like how dramatic you want it, right? Like let's say I want it to go kind of slow. Let me hold shift while I do this, or nice gradual and then kind of faster, right? So as soon as and then goes real quick. So that's kind of the idea that you guys have with the objects, right? And so now you can start animating the objects in the surreal scene and make it weird. Play around with scale, play around with textures and with different materials, and also play around with like you want a bunch of things in the scene, right? Play around with rotation, play around with position and with the scale of it, right? And then the other thing I wanted to mention was the where is it? Just making sure that your guys' project settings are correct, making sure that your render settings are correct, and then you go ahead and render it out. Oh, and by number. So scale, playing with scale of things, playing with material of objects, and then playing with the amount of them will really sell the surrealistic scene. But that is kind of where I'm going to close off for today. Don't forget to add the camera movement in there. You guys can render these out as 2 different videos if you want, or 1 single video. I would prefer 1 single video, but I will accept 2 for this one. And then also I would like to see some like real creative, like really weird things. Like, get weird with this. Let's have fun, but also keep in mind design principles, right? Colors of things, just kind of how things work together, things like that. You can mess around with the lighting. You can change colors of lighting and stuff. So I want you guys to just kind of explore this and have fun. It's a little bit more of a deep dive into objects and materials and stuff, but I think you guys will enjoy it. And then if you have questions, go ahead and ask in Slack, or you can message me, but I really highly recommend utilizing Bell as well. So I hope you guys have a good night, and I will see you on Tuesday.